Hello, boys and girls, or soft cuddly toys, or various animals. Hi there, it's Mark Manning with This Much Is True. Sorry, I've got to have to just throw this show together tonight. Why is that? Because I was away at the weekend. The only 2 days that I have missed since I began this on January 2nd. And I was away because it was one of my daughter's 21st. So they're all off my hands now in terms of being adults. And it seems so short a time, 21 years ago, and yet a lifetime has happened in that. So we scurried off to the north of Ireland, went to a place called Rostrevor, which is lovely. It's kind of just on the coast. And we had that mad wind outside, storm Isha, and all that going on, and blustery craziness. Went for a walk in a park on Saturday. Around there, it was just mad with the trees going left, right, and centre, and the noise of the leaves. In fact, I wanted to record them for you nearly. I thought it was so atmospheric. And beautiful, cosy town, cosy people, and a cosy place we stayed. It was like a converted old cottage, or could have even have been a cowshed or something, but it was all converted very nicely. And a bit higgly-piggly in an endearing way. Loved it. So, really, tonight, I'm just looking out to see if my beloved has arrived in with the groceries, because I want to give her a hand. Just tonight, very briefly, I mean, in my life, I have known some people who have accumulated and achieved wealth, some of them at a very early age. It was a very interesting process for me to watch as a sales guy. I always had aspirations myself because it was just what everyone did back then. You formed your own company, and then the big red letter day, the holy grail, was the IPO, and everyone made a fortune, and you all lived happily ever after. Rarely. But that was the thing driving us all back in the e-commerce days. So I would literally, and I did, work with companies who I saw in the embryonic stages in somewhere like here, maybe 3 times the size of this, and looking like this. And then, a few months later, or a year or two later, you'd meet the same people behind the company, and suddenly they had this big, almost palatial, mausoleum-y, like headquarters with gleaming marble halls and walls. And indeed, one of them, I saw that he had some suits visiting him from somewhere one day, and I was in the reception area of his new place. And I caught his eye and I said, "Hey, John," whatever his name was. I said, "John," and he said to me, I said, "Times have changed." And I winked at him because I knew his very humble origins as an e-commerce company. And he went, "Sure have, Mark." And just as he did, the elevator doors closed and he ascended along with his suits into moneydom, I suppose, now. Who knows? In fact, I'd say who knows. I'd say that company probably ended up on its ass, like so many more of them. They were built on sand. It was a ride, but hey, a lot of these, indeed, like for a long time, is it even making money? Like Facebook, for the longest time, didn't make money. So many more of them like that. They had it, what was known, I'm looking here because I've got many books on the subject, burn rate. It was how quickly you could burn through money. So you'd have these venture capital companies investing in what they thought was a good thing or had potential, and it ended up being built, as I said, on sand. So you saw that. I don't think, in my opinion, the accumulation of wealth at a very young age is good for people. Yeah, I know. Sounds like a defense mechanism, but I mean it. I'm not sure. I don't think you appreciate stuff. Now, it could be argued that the journey is so important and it's more important than the actual arrival. But let's face it, one eye is always on the prize. So they're looking for the arrival, and one day they have it. Some of them have it. And they look around, and in the words of Felix Dennis, who was, I think, England's first billionaire, he was publisher, he's dead now. And he said, "It was a very empty place when I arrived and looked around. Not many more people there. Very vacuous." And vacuous, I think, is a byproduct of just sheer wealth, because when it becomes life-changing wealth, unless you're a very canny person with very strong convictions, again, when you're back to the young thing as well, suddenly you can have all the friends in the world, the good time people, the Dubonnet set, the Jet set. They come looking for you. And, sorry, my watch shows pictures. My kids send me pictures. And what was I saying? Yeah, you can have all these. It's a key, isn't it, to all the parasites that are out there? All the loose women and guys, the gigolos. You know, they want to come for the party, but they don't want to stay, you know, unless you got something to offer. And there's so many of these leeches, liggers, fucking wishy-washy nobodies around. You get a lot of that as well. I'm not sure it is possible, really, unless it's a thing probably built in more. You know, greed is good. There's that thing, but it does. When it reaches a certain intersection of opulence, I think it can intersect with vulgarity or ostentatious. You know, when something that's so, I mean, there used to be, and it may still be out there, I'll name it. It was a phone called a Virtu. And these were like mobile phones back in the day, but they were encrusted probably with, you know, precious stones or... Sorry, you guys are important to me, but my daughter is very important, and she deserves a smile and a thumbs up for the photo she just sent me. Anyway, yeah, a Virtu phone. It was like the thing to have, and the phone was worth like 10 grand or something. Fucking hell, that's just obnoxious and vulgar. The opulence, you know, we used to see the likes of, say, Gaddafi with a golden pistol, you know. Fuck. Golden machine gun. I don't know. It doesn't float my boat, which brings me to my friend Stephen, who you met recently. Steve did very well. And he's very modest, but he did very well, very young, but he had a great head on his shoulders. And, you know, he accumulated some stuff very quickly. I remember I was on his yacht, and he was only about 40 at the time. I know that might sound old to some of you folks, but 40 is young. We were on it one night up around Malahide, and he had the flat screen TV before anybody else had, and we're on his yacht, and it was going up and down. It was a bit blustery that night. And I said, "Hey, Steve, I like it, but is this it?" You know, I can't remember what he said, but knowing him, it would be very modest. He's a maritime person. I mean, that's what he does, and he loves it. But I remember thinking, is that it? Anyone know the Bob Geldof book? Is that it? Is that it? Some kid said to him after the biggest rock and roll show in the world, i.e. Live Aid, some kid walked up, and this was after every top 80 star had been on stage, watched by, I don't know, at the time, maybe 2 billion people or something. The kid goes, is that it? And really, we are all the same arse up in the ditch, to be quite vulgar about it. So I don't know. I mean, it's the old thing, isn't it? What does it profit a man to accumulate blah, 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 but to lose his soul? And you see some of these cockamamie, you know, space programs now, and you go, why? Imagine what you could do with that money down here. But I know, I mean, it's argued, well, they think in a different realm, and I don't know. Also, I would notice on a smaller scale, I think, what I used to call wide boys, you know, these like little Flash Harry types. I used to come across a few of them. And there's signs to watch out for with people that are that seem to have it all. But you know, they will go tits up. And I can certainly think of 2 individuals, if not more. There's 2, you know, watch out for the big car, a young man in a big car. Watch out for that, you know. Just be careful. There's always a story behind that. Indeed, I worked for a company at one point for about a year. It was like being in the mafia. And they would buy us cars like for fun. I mean, I had a BMW, the big 5 Series BMW when I was 24, 26, something like that. And they weren't paid for. They had some kind of a loose leasing arrangement, but I'm sure they left that company owing hundreds of thousands. But anyway, watch out for that. And watch out for the ones that don't return phone calls. The ones that are afraid of the customer, especially when the customer has a gripe or a complaint. They run a mile. They don't want to handle it. They can't handle it. So, I mean, that was one thing I would pride myself on. If there was a shit hitting the fan, I used to get into my car and I'd go face it and explain to that customer why this had happened, how it had slipped up. And I would take both barrels. And once you let them pour it all over you, after a while, they get nice. How much was that thing again? Maybe I'll buy 2 of them. You keep just going. Is there more? Is there more? And it wasn't even a tactic. I believe the truth is shamed but never blamed. Get off your arse. Go see the customer, in the good times, but more so in the bad times. If you've let them down or circumstantial stances have go face them. So anyway, just to recap, I've seen wealth. Don't believe it's necessarily a fortuitous thing if you get it too young. It does arrive at a point, and especially with young people, it'll often fail. The business will fail. Now it's argued, entrepreneur-wise, I've got a few failures, and now I'm going to get back up again. That's great, and I'm really happy for you if you've got that kind of gene going. That is an entrepreneurial gene. Get back up on the horse. That's fine, but they do leave a lot of shit behind them, those horses. People's livelihoods, pensions, dreams, mortgages. And you see, it's not easy to kind of exit and not break a lot of eggs, especially when you're in trouble with a company. You've got to exit as discreetly as you can, and the truth has to be kept until the last moment. It could be argued. To protect the downside, which any entrepreneur does. Richard Branson, one of the first criteria he would often have is this company, does it have a downside, and can I protect myself against it? And if I can, I'll go into that particular sphere of business. So there's casualties of people's maniacal desires to be a super duper entrepreneur, and you don't often hear about them. I mean, the late Robert Maxwell, point in case, he disappeared off his yacht, didn't he? I can tell you exactly when. It was roughly January, was it? No, it wasn't. It was around November the 5th, 1991. He took a trip in the ocean off his big yacht. Never found. Well, he was found. He was found and he's buried in Israel. But of course, all the pensions had been spent propping up the company. There's so much more I could tell you, but I've got work on. It's good to be back. I enjoyed my weekend away, and I wish you all a good night. I wish to God you would make contact here. This much is true at protonmail.com. I will ring my ding-a-ling when you do. This much is true at protonmail.com. Excuse me. And suggest some subject matter, please. Or comment on the comments below here on YouTube. Or look at some of the older episodes, especially the early ones, where there was plenty to talk about. I think, be it paranormal or whatever it was. The old places I used to stay, my first apartments, the first cars that I drove and that you probably drove, whatever you want to talk to me about, it would be great. Feedback would be good. This much is true at protonmail.com. It's good to be back. Hopefully I'll be more organised tomorrow. I've a lot on. I have the hospital in the morning. Oh, I've night classes tomorrow. Oh yeah, I'll tell you all about those as well. But I will squire you guys in. All 2 of you. Or whoever's looking. Good night. Take care because I care.